Okay. Well, welcome everyone. I'm Dana Davidson and I am coordinator of thesis and dissertation services for the graduate school. And I'm joined by Sarah Dick.
I'm the copyright officer.
And we are going to briefly take you through the thesis and dissertation process from the graduate school end. This is a little weird because we are condensing the entire process, which can take, if you're doing a dissertation, can take several years. And we're condensing the entire process into about a half hour. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us because you're probably not going to remember everything that we talked to you about today. But just to get started, I am going to share my screen. Okay. And I am going to let you know that pretty much everything you need to know about the process you can find on our website. Our website is grad.illinoisstate.edu. And when you go to our homepage, if you scroll down a little bit, there's a red box that says thesis and dissertation help. And if you click on that and look at the left-hand side of the page, you'll find a bunch of gray tabs and they will take you all the way through the process. So at whatever stage you are in, you can find a page that will give you information about it. But the first thing that you're going to want to do when you start is to start with your graduation date and work backwards. So if you click on this review dates and deadlines page, it will take you to a page that has deadlines for the next few semesters out. So let's just say you are going to graduate next semester in May. What you're going to want to do is find the final deposit filing deadline for whether you're doing a thesis or dissertation and work your way backwards. Review your timeline with your committee chair. The final deposit filing deadline is a firm deadline. That is the deadline by which you need to upload the final draft of your thesis or dissertation to ProQuest and submit your final deposit forms to the grad school. And I'll go through all of this later, but that's the deadline by which you have to do that. So review your timeline with your committee chair and make sure you build in time for the unexpected. It will likely take your committee longer to read your chapters than you think it's going to. You may have a committee member who gets sick. You need to build in time for the unexpected and make sure that your timeline is realistic. So there are three major benchmarks from the grad school. The first is, and there's forms that go with all of these. The first is when you need to submit your proposal approval form, which is a form that you will submit to us immediately after you hold your proposal within your department. If you're graduating next May, that deadline is January 18th. If you propose earlier, you can submit this form anytime after you propose. But if you're graduating next semester, that's the deadline to get it submitted to us. The last day for you to hold your oral defense, if you're doing a dissertation for next May, would be March 21st. If you're doing a thesis, it would be April 4th. That's another milestone with our office. And again, the final deposit deadline for you to upload your final draft and submit your final deposit materials is here. So those are the deadlines that you need to look out for, and we'll go through the process with those in just a couple of minutes. But I do want to let you know, when you start writing your thesis or dissertation, please click on this thesis dissertation writing tab, because we have templates for you to use that will make the formatting part of the process at the very end, when you just want to be done. This will make the formatting process so much easier for you. We have templates for APA and MLA. And if you use those templates, they use the styles function in Word, and you highlight, you click the appropriate style, and it formats for you. It will also format your table of contents, which is an area where a lot of students have problems if they don't use the template. So make sure you use the template. If you're not familiar with using styles, there is a series of videos. I highly recommend taking a look at these in order. And if for some reason you've already started writing and you did not use the template, make sure you take a look at the correct way to copy and paste text into the template if you decide you want to use it. Because you can't just select all, copy and paste. It will mess up the formatting. So there is a correct way to copy and paste text into the template. And did I see a question?
I answered it.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Sarah. I can't see that. So, okay. So when you hold your proposal, we'll go to this page. When you are establishing your committee, there are some guidelines that you need to be aware of. Your chair and the majority of your committee members need to be faculty members who hold full grad faculty status from your department. And just because a faculty member teaches grad classes does not necessarily mean they have full grad faculty status. So there is a spot where you can click and take a look at your department. Let's do biological sciences for a second. Here's the department. Here's the faculty members. You don't want to look at whether they're an associate professor or a professor. You want to look at this column where it says full member or associate member. As I said, your chair and the majority of your committee members need to be full grad faculty members from your department, which is not to say you can't have outside members on your committee. You are welcome to do that if there's someone from another university or an organization outside the university who you think is going to bring a certain area of expertise to your committee. You are welcome to have those members. It's just that if you're going to have somebody like that, you need to submit a CV with your proposal approval form so we can review that. If you want a retired faculty member, that is fine. They can stay on as a committee member or your chair. But anybody from that's not grad faculty or from outside of ISU, you need to submit a CV. So once you have held your proposal defense in your department, you are going to submit a proposal approval form to us. On the proposal approval form, this is establishing your research and your committee with the graduate school. We're going to get some information about you up here. You are also going to sign off that you have read the compliance requirements about IRB or IACUC. If you're using, if you're doing surveys and using human subjects, you must go through the IRB process, and your IRB must be approved before you can start your research. If you're using animals, you have to go through the IACUC process, and that needs to be approved before you start your research. So we can approve this proposal approval form, but unless your IRB has been approved, you can't start your research yet. You're also going to fill out the copyright checklist, which Sarah is going to talk to you about in a few minutes. But that is section 5. And I will leave that to Sarah. We're also going to ask you to list your committee members. And your committee members will need to sign the form. If you are using someone from outside ISU or a non-grad faculty member, just list a rationale right here. We'd kind of like to know why you want to have this person on your committee, and what area of expertise they're going to bring. You need to sign the form, and your department chair or grad coordinator also needs to sign off. And I will give you one caveat. Your grad coordinator can sign off on this form as long as they're not your committee chair. If your graduate coordinator, and this does sometimes happen, if your graduate coordinator is your committee chair, then we need to have your department chair sign off on the form. So that's your proposal approval form. You can submit this to us electronically. We actually at this point prefer electronic submission of forms. And once your proposal approval form is approved, you can start your research. So once you have completed your research and you have a draft ready and you are getting ready to defend, you will go to the thesis defense and revision tab. Before you can hold your defense, there are a couple of things you need to do, and this is another milestone and benchmark with the grad school. You need to submit a right to defend form. The right to defend form needs to be signed by you and your committee chair. And we're going to ask you some information. We're going to ask you if your committee has changed since you originally submitted your proposal approval form. That does occasionally happen. And if it happens, you will need to submit a committee change form to us so we can verify that your committee still meets grad school requirements. We're going to ask you again about information on the copyright checklist, which Sarah will talk to you about. And you and your committee chair need to sign the form. Before you submit this form to our office, you need to upload a complete draft of your thesis or dissertation to ProQuest. ProQuest is an electronic database clearinghouse, and it's where all of the theses and dissertations from ISU are submitted to. There is a link here that will show you how to set up a ProQuest account. It's pretty self-explanatory, but one thing you do need to keep in mind, there are a couple of questions that they're going to ask you when you're setting up your account that have to do with money. You'll be able to change everything except anything having to do with money when it comes to ProQuest. So just keep that in mind when you're setting up your account. Okay. Sorry, haven't done this for a while. I'm looking at my list. Your right to defend form needs to be submitted to our office at least 10 days before you hold your defense, because we need to approve it at least 7 days before you hold your defense. So that gives us a little bit of time to deal with any issues that may come up before we can approve the form. A couple of things to keep in mind when you are planning your defense. You might want to plan to attend a couple of other defenses from people in your department, just so you know what to expect. You should expect questions from your committee, and you should also expect your committee to ask you for some revisions to your thesis or dissertation. So be sure when you're planning your timeline all the way at the beginning, make sure you build in time for those revisions so you'll have time to do them before you have to submit your final draft to ProQuest and your final forms to the grad school. So once you have held your defense and you've done all of the revisions that your committee has asked for, you're going to upload the final content draft of your thesis or dissertation to ProQuest. The draft that you upload for your right to defend, we realize is not going to be your final draft. At that point, you are only submitting to the grad school, and we will send it on to ProQuest after the formatting process is done. So don't be confused by ProQuest language. You're actually going to have to upload and submit. You're going to have to click submit, but you're only submitting to us until we send it to ProQuest. So once you've uploaded your final content draft, you are going to submit your outcome of defense form and final deposit checklist to our office. Your outcome of defense form is the form where your committee members are going to be listed, and they are going to sign off that you have passed your defense. So they need to sign, and they need to indicate pass, and they need to indicate the date. And then you'll submit this to our office along with your final deposit checklist, which does not require any signatures, but it does require information that we need. So you submit those two forms once you've uploaded your final draft to ProQuest. At that point, you want to be done, but you're not. Because at that point, the grad school is going to review your submission for formatting, and we are going to send you formatting corrections to your ISU email account. So please be sure you continue to check your ISU email until you hear from us that your thesis or dissertation has been approved. If you've used the template, this process is going to be a lot easier, but it's a very rare thesis or dissertation that doesn't have at least a couple formatting corrections that need to be made. So we'll email corrections to you. That email is going to come from dissert@ilstu.edu. So please don't ignore emails from that email address. And you'll make the formatting corrections. You'll upload a corrected PDF to ProQuest. Occasionally, we need to go through several rounds of formatting corrections. So just keep checking your ISU email until you hear from us that it's been approved. And that really at this point is all I have. Are there any questions that are in the chat that haven't been answered, Sarah? If you have questions for me, I will also show you that, there is a Contact Us page tab on our website. So if you have questions about anything, my contact information is there and Sarah's contact information is there. So please feel free to reach out to us. We would much rather answer any questions ahead of time, so the process is easier for you. And I guess at that point, I'm going to stop sharing and turn things over to Sarah. It is all yours, Sarah.
Thank you. So this is about the copyright checklist, and this checklist applies really to anyone, not just students, myself, faculty, anyone. These are generally the things that may need permission for use, which is legally called a license for you to be able to use. My job isn't to restrict you from getting it. My job is to figure out how to help you get whatever you need, and to do so without any fee. And if there's a fee, then I would negotiate on your behalf. So as you continue to write and work with your research, just keep in touch with me. It isn't that you can't contact me at the very end, just before your final defense, but some things can take a little bit longer to obtain. Most copyright stuff is pretty easy, but I will warn you, it is tedious. And I find it annoying, so I imagine that anyone else who needs it does as well. So when you talk with me and I ask you for your form, I would need all your demographic information. Don't send me a blank page because I can't sign that. So check these things in here. And when you say that you have a scale or an image or any of those things, send me the citation for each of those items as you're going to write it in your bibliography. You can send me a link to Google Images. You can send me a link to wherever you found something, and I will work with you to figure out how we get permissions. Sometimes I can't always get the permission for that exact thing very easily, but we can find it in another venue or form or something very similar. So we'll work all that out for you. I would ask you to not directly contact an author unless you absolutely positively know that that author has retained their copyrights and can grant permission. When an author accepts a publication contract, it's almost always the case that the authors plural, have transferred their copyrights to the publisher. Therefore, it is the publisher who must grant permission for use, issue the license. Sometimes that's not the case, but most people don't keep track of that contract very well. And it's really only the publisher who can tell us the terms of that and can let us know. So sometimes we've had a problem where someone's contacted the author and the author said no, but it really wasn't the author's ability to grant that permission. And now we have to work that out between the author and the publisher and all that. So that's why I asked you to let me do some of those negotiations on your behest. So I don't think I have anything else to say, but I will say there is this lovely box down here when you're doing your first proposal that you don't know about any of these items here. And if your research is such that you're using surveys or questionnaires, I would prefer that you wait until after the proposal hearing, because you don't want to obtain permissions for 20 different testing instruments when you're only going to need 4 or 5, or you're going to get rid of some of those that you have permission, or you're going to add some in. And that's not an unusual occurrence. So save yourself some time and energy and just check that box. And then after your hearing and you've gotten everything sorted out about what you and the committee want, then let me know about that. The only other thing that I will say to you, and this has nothing to do about the copyright, but that when you're setting up your ProQuest account, you're given the chance to say if you want to embargo something. An embargo means that the full text is not available for whatever period of time you set the embargo to be, traditionally 6 months, 1 year, or 2 years. You can request through the inevitable form an extended embargo if you are doing research that involves patents or trademarks, or you wish to publish out of your thesis or dissertation. And the reason for the embargo is It will only provide the title, your name, your university affiliation, and your abstract. Sometimes some publishers say, well, I don't want to grant you a publication contract because this has already become available. Generally not because of ProQuest, but because when you set up your account, we also offer you the option to publish in the repository, ISU Red. It's an open access repository, and that means that anyone at any time from anywhere in the world can download your full draft. And it's a very cool thing because you can enter into really nice conversations with people in the world that are interested in your research. However, because it's generally within the top 3 search results in Google Scholar, publishers definitely don't want to issue contracts for something that's so widely available, even though you will be modifying it for a book or an article. So I would encourage you to work with your committee about whether you need an embargo status or not. That is all I have to say. But if somebody has questions, raise your hand, put in the chat. I think the template is the cat's pajamas.
Yeah, it's a very good thing.
Watch the videos because they really do help you get some of the little tricks and innuendos of using it in there.
Yep. All right. Well, if no one,
Yep. Thanks, Angel. And there's no wasps today, Angel. I've been looking.
If you, as I said, if you think of any questions after this, please feel free to reach out to us. That's what we're here for. We want to make this as easy a process as possible for you. But if nobody has any questions, we will let you go. So have a good day, everyone.
Wait a second, see if people are last minute.